to get her upgraded Lings out, take control of the game with that, and then go into Infestors or maybe some other kind of tech to follow it up. And if she puts Naniwa on a 2-base all-in, I think she might try that, but we saw, like, she lost to Hitman. Naniwa is like Hitman on steroids times 10. So I don't know how well that would work out for her. Then in the macro games, her macro game seems actually very... That's the biggest weakness is that she goes for mutas. That's her thing. She maybe does a timing attack, but then she gets to mutas. And a lot of Zergs play like that, but if you're that predictable, if you have that few options that you really feel comfortable with, that can be a very, very major handicap.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the style that she seemed to default to, particularly in the tournaments at the latter half of the year, which involved a fairly heavy Sky Toss style, a lot of mutas, and then eventually just backing it up with Corruptors, striking wherever she could, and then taking full-on engagements only when she felt comfortable doing so. And it was actually working against Protoss, which conventional wisdom would think that it wouldn't. Do you think that that style is particularly strong?
She has the multitasking to make it work against 99% of Protoss players. But then when you get up against someone who's really, really smart and willing to apply pressure at the right times, like Parting, for instance, we saw just deal with it quite easily, then you can run into some issues. It's a style with definite weaknesses. And even in macro games, if you get up your Phoenix account early enough, you can't go Panic Phoenix against it because it kind of snowballs. But if you already have that fleet up, you can already take back map control immediately and start putting on pressure before the Zerg gets upgrades, before they get their 5th base running, before they get their tech going. Then I don't know, it's not the most reliable, stable style. It's more of a, I'm going to outplay you. I'm just going to be better than you. And she can get away with that against a lot of people. Whether she can get away with it against Naniwa, I don't know, because he's going to put pressure on you. He's not a very passive player. He can play a death ball. He knows what units to make. He knows how to expand and whatnot. But that's not what he wants to do. He wants to be in your face. He wants to be taking advantage of his control and his aggression and his decision making more so than his macro.
That certainly seems to be the case. Naniwa starting off with the Gateway Expand, which is... You could even maybe argue that he was one of the players to really popularize that opening. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That DreamHack, where the finals ended up being him versus Lina, he did end up losing that, but he got to the finals on the back of beating a bunch of good Protosses by going Gateway Expansion into really, really hard early aggression. And he was one of the first... That style was around on ladder. It was something people were playing with at the start of HOTS, but he was the first Protoss to really do it a lot over and over, like reliably. Ooh, and we see a Twilight Council, and this early, that's probably going to be a super fast DT rush, almost guaranteed.
It's a nice little move as well. Naniwa is deliberately looking for scouting overlords and anything that could possibly see it, and Scarlett is not in a good position to actually scout that at all. We noticed in her matchups against Hitman, actually, that her scouting seemed to be a little bit of a weakness for her, and it looks like this Twilight Council is not going to get spotted anytime soon.
Definitely not. She's not going to know for sure that it's coming, but the fact that he got a Stalker out that quickly, he actually got a Stalker before his Nexus, which is very, very uncommon, and then he's using it to clear out scouting information. That shows a very big dedication to keeping something secret. And she just saw the probe coming out as well with her Zerglings. So she should know something's up. It's just going to be whether or not because she definitely feels something is wrong here. You see that, you know something's up. It's just whether or not she trusts her instincts and puts down those Panic Spore Crawlers or not, because this is so early. If you don't have them down, it's going to do a lot of damage.
Well, so far we only see a Roach-Warren coming out. No spores as of yet. They don't take too long to build. Of course, they don't need an evolution chamber anymore, as people keep reminding me. But let's see where the pylon is. It's in a good spot right now, and she has not spotted it anywhere. There's nowhere close to seeing it. Metabolic boost is not done yet, not for a long time. This is not good right now. There's still no spores coming down here. Of course, no Lairtex or no Overseer either. Scarlett is going to be in a lot of trouble here, surely.
That Roach Warren is really bad news. She thinks this is a Warp Gate rush. Naniwa is only building the gas that she can't see at his natural, so it looks like he's on 2 gas, which says 6 or 8 gate. And, oh, the Spore Crawlers do come down, but the Dark Giant's already completed on it. And it's only 1 Spore Crawler. This is not good at all. She thinks this is going to be a Warp Gate all-in.
And this Stalker has just danced its way through hell and back again, and has actually stayed alive. It will eventually die, but it'll account well for itself. This Mothership Core actually got kills against things that don't have 2 hit points, which is pretty impressive. And here come the DTs. That was a mere distraction.
Yeah, she put down the 1 Spore Crawler, but that was only to fend off the Mothership Core. Just now she realizes, with that gas coming down, with those DTs walking in, this is the first time she knows it's not going to be a Warp Gate all-in, and she's just not prepared for it. That hatchery's going to fall, as long as he doesn't let a Spore Crawler get up, and he's not going to.
No, this is looking like it could be a very early game 1 here from Naniwa, a very nicely prepared build that catches Scarlett off guard here. This natural hatchery is certainly dead. The third base is still up right now, so she may continue to try and play this out, but she's certainly taken critical damage, and a double Stargate is the follow-up here.
Double Stargate's very interesting off 2 base. He's probably if he goes to 3 bases, if he's playing more of a mid-game macro kind of thing, he likes to do the heavy Void Ray Star like we saw from In Control the first game of the undercard match. So I would imagine that's just for that. He's going to start up Void Rays. He's going to take his 3rd base and macro from there. But he may be doing a really Void Ray heavy Warp Gate all in because he's just decided that his DTs get enough damage. There's no reason to let her stay in the game for that much longer.
Well,
but yeah, taking that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you were going to say she has 2 bases full saturation. She's taking a 3rd. She has detection up, including Overseers, so she can kind of retake map control. But losing that hatchery early on, as well as a queen, a couple of other drones, she took damage beyond just the hatchery falling, so it's not like the previous game where In Control took out a hatchery at the cost of 7 sentries and nothing else. He has only lost a couple of zealots. He killed the hatchery, he killed queens, he killed economy. So this is a really, really bad situation for her. However, Naniwa has essentially no units at home. He's doing kind of a greedy Void Ray transition, just assuming that the DTs would give him map control. She might catch him and force a cancel on the 3rd, but the first 2 Void Rays are already out, so it's looking like he's going to be okay.
Yeah, there's a Mothership Core here with a lot of energy as well. Photon Overcharge won't be an issue, but a Time Warp certainly wouldn't be bad here, and he knows that. Throws down a tactical force field to allow for maximum coverage here, and his units account for themselves pretty well. The DTs, of course, fighting well, and he knows if I can get rid of these Overseers, this is not going to be a factor. The 2nd Overseer is about to go off there. Force field placed down. Roach is trying their best to make something happen here, but Naniwa has shut this out well.
Yeah, those DTs are invincible now. The Void Rays targeting down the Overseers, no other Overlord or Overseer anywhere nearby, and additional Void Rays coming out now, just more and more DPS, and that Nexus isn't even going to fall. Plus, she's lost all those units, so she now has no map control. He has 3 bases running with double Stargate producing. You have a Spire about to finish for Scarlett, so I have to imagine she's going to try and mute a switch. That's what we said. That's what she likes to do.
Yeah.
She sees Void Rays. She knows she has to do something. She's not going to have the mass to do any kind of Roach Hydra timing. She doesn't really have much going for her at all. She can't try and transition into the late game without making anything happen. And mutas are the best way to do that. And she does start the +1 air upgrades. So she will be going for mutas. But this army coming across the map from Naniwa, that's 3 DTs, a Mothership Core, and 4 Void Rays. Not your normal marauding forces. But Scarlett just has so little stuff, it might work out anyway. Because 9 mutas against 4 Void Rays and Mothership Core, they don't really kill it that fast. And the DTs are going to be doing damage in the meantime.
Yeah, they are. And there really isn't all that much here for Scarlett. Yeah, she's got a nice bank of gas, and she's working on it right now. And she's going to be sitting on 8 gas as well. But that involves her actually surviving. And this 4th base is about to pop in about 5 seconds. The overcharge goes off on the Void Rays, and the recall comes in. He doesn't actually get the base there, which is a little unfortunate. I think perhaps he was worried that there were going to be more mutas than that.
Honestly, it was smart by him because that Mothership Core was about to die. If we look at it, I don't know. I think it was into red hit points.
Yeah, it was 32. Yeah.
And if that dies, then she loses everything else as well. And it's not worth trading. Or he loses. Pardon me. He loses everything else as well because he can't recall out and he can't run away from the mutas. So trading 4 Void Rays, 3 DTs, and Mothership Core for a hatchery, not really worth it. So good judgment call by him. Actually, perfect timing on that recall out. He couldn't have let it last any longer. So well done by him. And he also got the scouting information. He saw the mutas. He's already pumping out Phoenix. Adding an additional an additional Stargate. So those mutas not really going to do anything, and without them doing anything, not sure what Scarlett's fallback is going to be because she just doesn't have much besides the mutas.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Those Phoenixes, Naniwa's micro is known to be really, really good, and those Phoenixes are going to have a lot of fun here. They do slightly miss target there on the Overseers, so she is able to keep those Mutalisks alive, but there's even an Archon on the ground and Void Rays following up, so these are on the run, and we are seeing a transition into that style I mentioned earlier with the Heavy Muta Corruptor. She's still sitting on 8 gas, which means she can produce an awful lot of air units, but getting anything done with them, as you mentioned, is difficult. She's only killed 5 workers up to this point. She did pick off a sentry, which was a nice little grab, but that's not enough to really get her back into the game in a big way.
No, it isn't. And those Corruptors, they will help against the Phoenix, but they only really zone the Phoenix. They don't kill stuff. And then it's just a question of how she's going to deal with the rest of the army, because there's lots of Void Rays there. There's a couple of Archons there, which is a real big problem. Some Zealots, and he can continue to warp in. So even if he can't just chase her mutas down with the Phoenix, as we saw before, even if she can keep those alive, it's just how is she going to deal with this army? How is she going to keep the rest of her base alive? Because she doesn't really have anything else to work with.
This fourth base is going to die, surely. I mean, it was already on low HP to begin with. That amount of Void Rays will pop it in under a second. That's not the kind of thing that she can really hold. I think she's just trying to trade that third base for as much of the enemy as possible here. Void Ray charge goes off. The Queens try and fight as well. The Corruptor's unfortunately not at the front taking most of the fire here, so the Mutalisks are not having a good time. There were about 20, there's now only 5. Absolutely decimated by the Protoss army there, and the Archons continue to remain on the ground here, and this fourth base is most assuredly forfeit.
Yeah, this is the problem with going Mutas. Of course, she was behind to begin with from that DT start, so that does not help. But if your Mutas get scouted right away, your opponent can get Archons and Phoenix out in a timely fashion. There's a very big window before you hit critical mass of Mutas where you can really force a base trade, or before you can actually take down split armies. And Naniwa, just, you know, perfect response, perfect decision making, knowing exactly how to punish it, and just rolling right on through her.
Yeah,
pretty easy
certainly.
game, 1 win.
Yeah, I certainly think so. There's not really any way to come back from this. We see Scarlett defending as best she can with Mutalisks, but she doesn't have enough. She already lost a couple as they tried to join up with the army. The Archons just having an absolute field day here in the middle line. There is the GG. And the first win of this best of 7 show match goes to Naniwa.
Cute little build from him. It seems like just a simple DT rush, but there was a decent amount of nuance to it. Getting that early stalker out, it's a bit of a tell. It says that something funny is going to happen, but it doesn't say what. And he used it to carefully deny any scouting information. There was no chance that she was actually going to get in there and see the shrine. Then only taking the hidden gas, making sure that she couldn't see. Basically, she just thought he was doing a work gate all in. She could see that he hadn't taken one of his gases, assumed it was going to be a 6 or an 8 gate, something along those lines. That are really early Roach Warren. Perfect response if it is a work gate rush, but not what you want against the DTs. So he really hit that quite well. And then from there, easy win for him.
I certainly think so. That was a nice pick on Star Station there. He did very, very well. The second map is going to... I believe we actually already have that all sorted out. We're just switching regions right now. Some people were asking, well, how are you balancing the lag issues? They're not in the same country right now. Absolutely. We are alternating servers between each map to make sure that we have the fairest possible environment for these players. Neither of the players were complaining about lag. Naniwa was actually testing his connection to America last night. And of course, since he has the glorious Swedish internet, he's really not concerned about the lag at this point.
Yeah, that game, it really wouldn't have played too much of a role.
No.
Universe Phoenix can be kind of iffy in questionable latency, but if anything, it was Naniwa who was kind of messing up his control a little bit. It didn't really end up mattering either way there. So if it had dragged out, if it had been a closer game, maybe. But as is, no big deal.
Yep. Belshir is going to be the second map. The map order right now goes something like this. Star Station was the first map. We then have Belshir, followed by Frost, Yonsu, and Polar Knight. At which point the map pool will then refresh. Each player will receive 1 veto at that point. In fact, they have already vetoed the maps for the second refresh, which is Scarlett vetoing Yonsu, which we heard earlier, Scarlett hates that map, and then Naniwa vetoing Polar Knight, which leaves Star Station, Belshir, and Frost in a loser picks format. So, first 5 maps determined. If it goes to 6 and 7, we go to loser picks from there on in.
Belshir for the next map. Belshir's the map. It's been around for a really, really long time. And it's the kind of map that everyone's kind of comfortable on. It's almost never vetoed by either side, P or Z. A lot of Protosses feel pretty comfortable with it. There's lots of big ramps and high grounds that you can take control of. It's really good for Protoss death balls if you can get it going. But at the same time, there's 2 sides to it. You can do a back and forth muta kind of style that Scarlett obviously is very fond of. You really just run your opponent around the map. I'm not sure who I would say this favors. Did they choose the map order? Did they have to pick?
They choose the map order.
Who chose Belshir?
That is a really good question. I think that might have actually been Naniwa, as it turns out. I'm pretty sure that Scarlett got the first map pick. I would have to look back in the logs here. In fact, I may be able to find that out.
Yeah, I would expect Scarlett to be going more towards the maps like Star Station to an extent, also Frost, where it's harder to take a third base, a bit easier, just bigger, more macro, more open map-oriented kind of things. Whereas Naniwa should be looking for the more pressure-oriented maps. And Belshir is on the bigger end of that, but it's kind of in vain.
Yep. I don't know who actually picked it. It looks like they actually had that discussion in private. So, oh no, never mind. They didn't actually. It was in fact Naniwa that picked Belshir. So that first map was actually, I believe that was Scarlett's pick, and then of course we have Naniwa's pick Belshir, Frost for Scarlett, and Yonsu, then, of course, for Naniwa, as you might imagine, then Polar Knight being the 5th map. And then we have the refresh. So that's how that's currently working.
Yeah, that's not surprising though. That's always a really good, or like a really good feeling for you as a player when your opponent picks the first map, then you win anyway, and then you get to move on to your map. On here, it's Belshir. It's not like if he had picked Yunsu second, I would say that was absolutely fantastic for him. Belshir is a bit more of a neutral map, so there's not going to be too much going for him. But if, for instance, like he won the first game on one of her maps, and then got to play on Yunsu, where we know she's very uncomfortable, and it's just such a good feeling as a player. It gives you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I certainly think so. I'm quite surprised not to see Yonsu come out second there from Naniwa, but it seemed like he wanted to save that for later on. Perhaps he didn't even expect to win the first map.
Oh yeah, you don't really want to count on that. It's more important to save it for the more crucial parts of the series. Like you can't choose the last map since we are doing the map reset kind of format.
Exactly, yeah.
But you'd love to have that for the last map. So if it goes to that all deciding, all important thing, then your opponent's not going to be in a really good mental state at a point where you're already going to be kind of nervous because you're going to be playing with that much money on the line.
Yeah, you're totally right there. All right, game 2 is coming up, folks. Belshir Vestige will be the target for this one. Naniwa, as you can see on the screen, very much the victor of the first map here. And now we have Scarlett versus Naniwa on Belshir Vestige for game 2. Best of 7, 14 Bitcoins on the line, brought to you by the sponsors that you can see below. Thank you very much to all of them for making this possible. Very much an enthusiast effort from those guys. Not looking for a return necessarily, just looking to put on a really cool event, and they are doing just that.
That they are.
That they are indeed. Alright, we are going into this game right here. So get the scores right. There we go. Wonderful. Okay, Belshir Vestige to the southeast position. In the red trunks, playing Protoss. Playing, of course, for Team Alliance. His name is Naniwa. Versus his opponent, who drops her first game against the Swedish Protoss on Star Station there. To the northwest position in the purple trunks, playing Zerg, it is Asa Scarlett.
And right now she's sitting there thinking, what's he going to do to me this game? When you lose to a Shees, and that was a very, very cheesy build. You go, I think, a Stalker into a Twilight Council off Gateway expansion. That's very, very risky. If she had the spores up, if those DTs don't do anything, Naniwa's in big trouble. But when you lose to that kind of thing in the first game, it really, really messes with your head going forward. Because, especially against someone like Naniwa, who you already know going into the match, he's capable of anything. He'll do anything from, like, we've even seen him do 1 base, 4 gate, no expansion, kind of silly warp gate all-ins, all the way up to a normal macro game and everything in between. So when you already know your opponent is that versatile and that dangerous, and then he just goes ahead and proves it that effectively in the first game, it's really, really uncomfortable. But it looks like he's actually going to be going for a Nexus first here. He has a bunch of probes queued up, and she... normal pull timing. On Belshir, of course, you pretty much have to go pull first because cannon rushes are just so strong on here. So no surprises from either player.
Yeah, it's not like Naniwa is above cannon rushing. He will absolutely do that. I mean, Naniwa to me seems like, out of all of the foreigners, he is the biggest when it comes to the killer instinct and just kind of playing the Korean style of do anything necessary to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is basically just what I was saying before, but I would say he's probably the most diverse of the competitive foreign Protosses, like the big names. Everyone is much more stylistic, and he certainly has a style. If anything, I'd say it is the aggression, the 2-base pressure, but he's capable of doing anything and doing it quite well. Mostly it comes down to his army control, because that's all Protoss really is from very, very early on to all the way late in game. If you can control your units well, you can be a good Protoss player, and he has that, and he can apply it to pretty much everything. So it makes him so dangerous.
That's very true. He also seems to prepare very specifically for his opponents. You mentioned it before, and you were not the only one to mention it, that every tournament we see Naniwa just bring this one build in particular. And it has varying success, but every now and again, it's a build that really carries him forward. It's not that he's not capable of playing other builds, but he'll prepare one thing specifically that's really nasty to deal with. Maybe it was that DT opener there. That's a possibility, but I am really looking forward to seeing what else he's actually got in his arsenal there. I mean, this is a best of 7. He's got to be pretty well prepared. He can't really go into it without any builds sort of in the chamber to use against Scarlett.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have a bit more diversity here. I mean, he's already gone with the Nexus first instead of the Gateway expansion, as he did the previous game. Although, it's worth noting, he probably should have mentioned it already, but he actually went Nexus Gateway Cybercore, which is pretty much the greediest build you can do. There's no cannon, there's no wall-in, even. He would be completely exposed to any kind of attack. But if you get away with this, you have both the economy of the Nexus first, which is, of course, a very powerful economy. And then you also have the very fast tech almost of a gateway expansion. Obviously, a little bit delayed, 400 minerals delayed, but otherwise very, very quick. But Scarlett's actually going to scout this immediately
Nice.
and doing a little bit of harass at the same time. So this is really, really good for her in that she's going to know that he has a potential to do a very quick warp gate rush or some kind of very quick aggression, very quick tech, very fast anything, basically.
Yeah. Scarlett has yet to actually do any damage, though. She's just picked off a probe there. Naniwa was up to that point doing a really good job of keeping his probes away, but it seems like he was loath to miss any more mining time.
Yeah, it gets kind of annoying after a point. You kind of just want to send them back. And actually, a very quick robo here. Very, very quick. Because as I said, that Cybercore already finished. The robo starting around the 540 mark. It's a good 30, 40 seconds faster than it normally is, I believe. So if he chooses to do this into an Immortal all-in, and he has a penchant for that kind of build, the very, very fast Zealot-based Immortal and Warp Prism pushes, if he does that, it's going to be very scary. But Scarlett's staying on 2 bases, so she's kind of expecting something like this. She's playing a little bit more conservatively, defensively, not really sticking herself out there and taking that 3rd base. And she's actually going for the double Evo Ling Heavy build that I mentioned before the first game. And
Let's see how well that works out for her.
yeah, it's something. If it's successful, it's really successful. If you manage to catch the first army and kill it off, you just get complete map control with your Lings. Protoss can never take a 3rd base, and by the time they can move out, you have a 3rd base established and either a bunch of Infestors or a bunch of Spire tech ready for them. And it's actually going to be a Warp Prism first, so he's going for very quick, probably aiming to take the ramp, force field that off, and just warp in a bunch of sentries. And it seems like against 2-base play, that wouldn't be so good because it's very conservative. But if you get a force field on the ramp, they don't have a bunch of units in their main, it doesn't really matter what else is going on. If you get control of that area, that can be the end of it for them. And a 3rd hatchery actually, this is earlier than she normally takes her 3rd base with this style. So we're seeing a bit of deviation from her. I guess going for more macro-oriented play off of the Massling opener instead of going for the very quick infestors like we saw in previous games.
With this War Prism out, do you feel that that earlier hatchery is going to cause her any problems?
Yeah, definitely, because she didn't go for a Speedling opening. We see speed is only maybe a quarter of the way done, so that's not going to really help her hold this off. No roaches anywhere near, and that 3rd hatchery is a bit exposed. If he just warps in a bunch of Zealots here, I think he right-clicks on it and it dies. And he's actually going a Robo-Bit behind this, and Colossus is absolutely fantastic in his style. Just, obviously, it's Colossus against Circling. That's about as good as you can hope.
Absolutely. The Mothership Core's taken a lot of damage already, though, which may force Naniwa to recall. He has, of course, shown that he's loath to lose the Mothership Core, specifically with that much energy on it. There are a lot of Lings out on the map right now. If Scarlett got a good engagement here, it would be great, but she doesn't have Metabolic Boost up yet, and there's that right click you were talking about. The Ling's now coming in, the Queen's trying to support it, just trying to hold on until she's able to get Metabolic Boost. A lot of damage done on the Mothership Core yet again, and these Lings trapped in the Time Warp as those Zealots make their way into attack. At least they're not +1 Zealots. That would be kind of disastrous. She goes for yet another surround. She can't get it right now. She's keeping this hatchery alive. A second Time Warp comes in. Lings make their way out. More Lings coming on the way here. And this attack, for the most part, has been thrown back for the moment, but it's still a threat. All of these units are still alive.
Speedling has finished. 1-1 is not just yet, but Naniwa is actually going in and getting surrounded, so these Zealots are all going to die. That was a bit questionable from him. I think he should have run away as soon as he saw the massive Speedlings. He had already won the efficiency battle there. He forced a lot more investment out of Scarlett than he put in himself. Plus, he has Colossus coming back at home, and Colossus against Ling Infestor is already great to begin with. So I feel like he really was in a good shape there. Losing that many Zealots, not the best. You'd rather not do that. But still, he's going to have a very good composition here. But she has a lot of Zerglings out on the map. He really has to watch out for a counterattack, or just, if those Zerglings manage to do anything, it can really snowball.
Yeah, there's a lot of sentries out here, plus the Colossus, so I can't see them getting into this base unless Naniwa decides to actually leave, and Scarlett probably doesn't want to risk those at the front with that many force fields available, but we are seeing that Infestor style come out right here, and we've seen it crush numerous players, actually. We saw it used, in fact, I think against Hitman, and that didn't work, funnily enough, but it worked very well at Asus Rock Northcon. She used that several times.
Yeah, in a similar game, she actually did lose to Hitman. He went 2-base Colossus, ended up killing her with it in a very similar game. Although that game, I think that was a little bit better for Hitman early on. She actually threw away a lot of Zerglings there. Here she's keeping him alive, actually counterattacking with it. And she is going to take down that gateway. He has the force field. He missed the force field. Oh, that's terrible for Naniwa.
Oh, yeah, the sentries get surrounded there. The Lings are now making their way into the base. This attack that's halfway across the map that doesn't have a Mothership Core with it is actually going to have to go for a base trade here because there are... don't think there's enough Zealots here to hold this off. There certainly isn't. The Lings are continuing to do damage here. The Protoss player now posturing towards the 3rd base. His economy gets absolutely ravaged.
Yeah, those are 1-1 Lings. Naniwa has 0 upgrades, no forge, no nothing. So those Lings are going to beat anything that he warps in. Naniwa just has to all in here. He should be warping in at his at his attack. He should just accept the all-in at this point. But a bunch of Infestors out, some Spine Crawlers, some Spore Crawlers, more Zerglings on the way. I don't know. A nice... Ooh, nice Fungal takes out 4 sentries there for
brutal,
Scarlett.
Yeah. That's not good at all here for Naniwa. I mean, the situation was already pretty dire for the Protoss. It's now getting even worse. The question is, can he break the natural with the army that he currently has? Because his base... It's not entirely forfeit, but he lost a lot of production at home. His economy is in tatters. There's only 29 drones left. Another fantastic Fungal comes out right here, and another to follow that one up. More sentries die, more zealots die. She is hitting it time and time and time again here.
Yeah, and the army is small enough now that those upgraded Zerglings can easily take everything else out. A bunch of Queens actually hitting the Immortals, and the Zerglings do run in this round. And
that's devastating.
That'll be the end of it. Naniwa was completely all in on that. Although he is Naniwa, he doesn't like to leave games, so he might stick around. But at this point, she's just in complete control. 2-2 upgrades, as you said, a Hive on the way, in fact. Bunch of Infestors out. I don't think he even killed an Infestor throughout all of that. Third base dies, but after you kill that many probes and you kill that big of a Protoss army, you're not really too concerned about that.
Yeah, I think he maybe managed to take out 1 or 2 Infestors, but there's still 5 on the board, which is great. And 2/2 Lings will kill almost anything. We saw them taking out the Colossus there. They have the amount of damage necessary. Double Forged Twilight Council is coming behind this with a Warp Prism. And perhaps he can think to hold that natural against elite Zerglings, but Hive is on the way, so... This is not a great position for the Protoss player. Scarlett is having to at least to re-establish a third. That's really one thing that Naniwa has going for him. He did take that base out.
Yeah. The double forge it's smart-ish. Naniwa realizes that you can't fight 0-0 Protoss, especially after losing all your big tech units. 0-0 against 2/2 Lings, it just kind of doesn't work. So getting that double forge up, trying to play catch-up on upgrades, but playing catch-up on upgrades from 2 bases with diminished probe count, I don't know about that. Not sure if that's really possible anymore at this point. And he's producing Immortals, which, against Ling Infestor, not going to do anything at all. He has Colossus available. Colossus are what you want. We do see the Ultra Cavern coming down, so maybe he's just gambling that she invests too much into the Ultras and the Immortals can counter that. But, I don't know. He just has so little to work with.
Yeah, and Scarlett's got to realize that she's been going up against an upgradeless Protoss. Those Lings have been training far too efficiently. Now, she's going to have a little bit of difficulty making her way into this base. It's a bit of a trap for these Lings, which is why she may decide just to wait for Ultras to batter the front down. She is adding a couple of Vipers into the composition, though.
That's interesting. I'm not sure what they really help with here. Warp Prism harassment coming out from Naniwa, but Scarlett has a lot of Zerglings, give you all the map control in the world, and there's nothing else really going on, so she has nothing to do except deny this harassment. No way that accomplishes anything at all.
No, certainly not. Even these drones are not going to die as quickly because they have +2 armor. They're better armored than those Zealots right now, which is a tad embarrassing.
That they are. Bunch of Templars being worked in, so we do have Archons coming out. Naniwa definitely recognizes the style. In fact, it's the same style that was played against him a bunch at that DreamHack we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That was kind of the rise of Leanox, upgrade Ling Infestor, quick Ultra build, which is exactly what's happening here. So he's going up for that Archon Immortal composition, going to try and fight it with that. That's what you want, but, you know, at some point you just need a lot of units, and he doesn't really have them.
Yeah, Warp Prism hanging around the corner, has not been able to do anything. Scarlett has just enough defense there to really make that work, especially against unupgraded Zealots. Scarlett throws out a huge amount of infested Terrans at the third base, which isn't there. So they're just going to...
That's interesting.
That's a lot of energy she just used for that. I mean, I guess it looks like more than it is, but actually she only has 5 infestors. She burned pretty much all of her energy doing that. Yeah,
that was pretty questionable, because that infestor mana is very, very important. You really want to have the infested Terrans for the additional DPS, a little bit of lockdown and whatnot.
Yeah, that was a bit surprising. Even a couple of fungals would make this fight a lot easier for her.
Yeah, hopefully she doesn't get over cocky, because if she doesn't have a great economy, if she somehow throws away this army, that could be the end of it. I just don't see that happening.
Well, Storm is about to finish. There's 4 Templars. I mean, if every Ling gets killed by Storm, and that was a pretty good one. Speaking of that, that took a large chunk of the Ling army out.
Yeah, but there's still so many there. There's the single Ultra, but with a bunch more Ultras coming to join it. And with those Queens, those just aren't going to die. Those Transfusers are going to do so much work. And
Templar out, very, very nice. And here it is. There's the Siege coming out right now. There is a little bit of fungal energy, but the feedbacks go down, so no fungal for you right now. But Scarlett has almost broken this natural ramp. Lings get in and surround the Immortal, killing it off before it's able to bring its guns to bear on the Ultralisks right now. The charge on the Zealots comes in, and the Zealots just get absolutely massacred against these 5-3 Ultralisks. The Queen's providing support from the back here. most of the Lings did end up getting killed, but they got into the base. They're in the mineral line. They're devastating absolutely everything right now. The Archons are not even killing this Ultralisk. It's immortal with that much transfuse. It finally goes down, but there's the GG, and Scarlett evens it up.
5-3